This building has been unfinished for more than 400 years. The workers stopped after Thomas Tresham died. They left their marks on the walls, and nobody ever came back to finish the job. But that isn't the strangest thing about Lyveden. Over the years, people have reported seeing a man standing at one of the upper windows. The problem is, there's no floor up there. So who or what were they seeing? Hello everyone! Today I am at Lyveden New Bield. From above, the geometry is unusual. The lodge is built in the shape of a Greek cross, but when you look at it properly, it doesn't sit as neatly as you might expect. The man behind it was Sir Thomas Tresham. Thomas Tresham was Catholic. In Elizabethan England, if you were Catholic, it wasn't just frowned upon. If you were refusing to hide it, it could ruin you. Tresham was fined again and again. He spent years under house arrest. He watched his estate shrink and his fortune drain. But through it all, he built. At Rushton, he built the triangular lodge, a monument to the Trinity, with the number 3 built into almost everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. There are 3 sides, 3 floors, and inside, on each floor, each corner has its own little triangular nook. Triangles inside triangles, 3, 3, 3. And here at Lyveden New Bield, he built something different. A lodge dedicated to Christ's Passion, a place where the geometry, the carvings, and the symbols are all doing the same thing. Look at that. He put his faith in plain sight. Every stone placed to say something he wasn't allowed to say out loud. Gloriare nisi in cruce Domini nostri. The Lyveden project began in the 1590s. He was still building in 1605, and then in September of that year, Thomas Tresham died. He never saw it finished. He never stood inside the completed building. Now, I don't think that this was about making something beautiful. Tresham was putting his faith into the building itself. Leave it where everyone else could see it. He wasn't subtle. I really cannot wait to go and investigate this place. I haven't seen pictures from the inside, just the outside. There should be a floor above, maybe 2. Tresham had the plan, the money, and the will to do it. But this is what we get instead. And here's the thing, the roof hasn't fallen in. Those walls are solid. This isn't a ruin. It just stopped. And one of these windows is where people have reported seeing someone standing. Standing on what exactly? There was never a floor. Anyway, what cut the building short? Let's go back to 1605. Thomas Tresham died in 1605, and he didn't just leave behind an unfinished lodge. He left behind debts and a son called Francis. And Francis is where the history gets darker. You see, only after weeks after his father died, Francis Tresham became involved in the Gunpowder Plot. The plan to blow up Parliament, kill the king, and trigger a Catholic uprising. Now, Francis seems to have had second thoughts, because an anonymous letter arrived warning a Catholic lord who was related to Francis not to attend the state opening. That letter helped expose the whole plot. We still don't know for certain who wrote it, but Francis Tresham was one of the strongest suspects. He was arrested. He went to the Tower of London, and by December, he was dead. And Lyveden stopped at almost the same moment the family fell apart. Still waiting, still unfinished. But that's not all, because approximately 100 years after Tresham, Lyveden turns up again in a story about people on the losing side. This time it's May 1743. Scottish soldiers called the Black Watch were marching south to be inspected by George II, which apparently was a big deal when rumours spread that they were being sent abroad without their consent. So over 100 of them turned back. They reached Lyveden, where they were besieged before being captured. 3 of the ringleaders were made an example of. They were taken to the Tower of London and they were shot. And that should have been the end of the story. Except around Lyveden, people have reported hearing something in the middle garden where I am right now. Drums or pipes. Not ghosts appearing in front of you, they're more like an echo. The stories gather outside the lodge, not just inside it. This mound and the moat below it seem to divide the middle garden, also known as the Old Orchard, from the area where the labyrinth once was. Tresham himself described 10 circular beds in a letter from 1604. Aerial photographs have revealed patterns in the ground here. This sort of pattern appears somewhere else in Britain. Places like the Grave Turf Maze are Saffron Walden, made to be walked, not just to look at. It kind of reminds me of the Miss Maze on St. Catherine's Hill. Its medieval design and proximity to the chapel may indicate that it was created for meditation, penitence and prayer. Maybe the idea behind it was the same. I'm told though that if you walk the path all the way around from the beginning to the end, it's a mile. Well, looks like I got to the centre. So, was this just a pretty place to walk? Or was the whole landscape part of the same idea? It kind of reminds me of a rosary. I wonder, actually. One of those crazy ideas. And then there are other stories. Not ghost stories exactly. More like folklore. The sort of things that a place like this collects over time. And looking at the house properly, some of the markings are stranger than you'd expect. Vivi, Virgo Virginis, maybe? They're sometimes called witch marks. This is a daisy wheel. There's a witch protection mark. Okay, this just turn itself off. Been a while since the gimbal has been playing up, but today is one of those days. The name is a bit misleading. They weren't necessarily made by witches, and they weren't necessarily about witches either. There are no witch stories here at Lyveden. They were protection marks. Marks against misfortunes, spirits, evil, demons, whatever people feared might get in. Serious, isn't it? Maybe this is a possible consecration cross. So what are they doing here? With the blessing the place, protecting it, marking it as sacred? I don't know. We can tell for sure that people did visit this place, even in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. I think this was supposed to be a kitchen. But this is probably my favorite part, because I do love a tunnel or a passage or whatever this is. All I know that it's not straight. I'm not saying this was some dramatic secret escape route, because I don't know that. It may have been completely practical, like a service entrance, a way in and out, something to keep the working parts of the house hidden from the pretty bits. But still, look at it. Everything here is symmetrical, except for this, and I do wonder why. So obviously I'm going for the escape tunnel. And then there is the bearded man at the window. People have reported seeing a bearded man standing at one of the upper windows. They don't say which window. Sometimes he is described as worried looking, which on the surface sounds like a fairly normal ghost story. You know, we got an old building with a figure at the window, fine. But there's only one problem. There was never a floor here, and there isn't one now. Or at least not one you can stand on. Lyveden was never finished, as I said. The stone shell is here, the windows are here, the idea of the rooms is here, but the internal floors were never completed. So when people say they've seen a bearded man at that height, kind of gets me a little bit, because it's not someone standing in a doorway, it's not someone at a low window, it's a man seen at a level when there shouldn't be anyone standing at all. Now, of course, there are reasonable explanations. It could be a trick of the light, power suggestion, the human brain doing what it does, finding faces and figures in stone. But my mind does go there, doesn't it? I do wonder if that is Tresham staying in a place that he never saw finished. A bearded man in an unfinished building standing on the first floor that only exists in a plan? We don't know, but a figure is seen where Tresham's building was meant to exist, not the lodge as it is, but in the house as it was supposed to be. Well, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give us a thumb up, and I shall see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye!